5 p.m. So I am going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask everybody to stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect. Well, I'm going to welcome everybody who's online with us. We don't have anybody in our audience yet, so we'll re-welcome them at 6. I am now going to go ahead and ask that everybody in the room join me in reciting both our mission and our vision. The mission of the Nampa School District is to ensure high levels of achievement for every student. The vision: every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, preparing for successful transition to the next stage of life. Okay, I will now go ahead and entertain a motion to approve our agenda. Okay, I second. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I will now entertain a motion putting us into executive session.
I move that we move into executive session per Idaho Code 74206, 1B, D, and J. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. D, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided by Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code. J, to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 74206, 1A and B of Idaho Code.
Okay, roll call vote.
Did you get a second?
Oh, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, sorry, roll call vote.
Chair Taylor?
Aye.
Trustee Kirkman?
Aye.
Trustee Sue?
Aye.
Trustee Benz?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Okay, we are now going to move into executive session and we will be out by 6 p.m. It is 6 o'clock and it is time to start our regular meeting. We already started a little bit earlier, so we had an opportunity to do our mission, vision, and the pledge. So at this point, I will just re-welcome everybody into the room. We're glad to have you here. We do have a public comment portion of our agenda. If you plan on speaking tonight, other than our student spotlight, of course, but if you plan on speaking tonight and have not signed up to give public comment yet, please do make sure that you sign up on the sheet right there in the hallway. Other than that, we're going to just go ahead and get going, and we are going to start with our student spotlight, Nampa Esports. So I am going to go ahead and have you guys come to the podium. Come on up, please, please. And then I am going to turn it over to Dr. Russell.
Yeah, Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight in front of you is a proud representation of our esports team. Just to share a little background, I did not know much about esports until a couple of months ago. My version of video games is someone sitting in a dark basement, playing until 3 a.m. But these fine gentlemen opened my eyes to actually how esports is and how competitive it is and how very much of it as a team is. And these guys dominate. I mean, they dominate. And I was so proud of them when I was watching them play some of the other high schools. So our principal, Ms. Burkholder, is here to kind of share a little bit about the program.
Thank you. So Chair Taylor and trustees, I am Casey Burkholder, and I get the awesome privilege of being the principal at Nampa High School. And as you probably are aware, there's amazing things happening at our school. And tonight we get to hear about another highlight, and that's our esports team. So a couple of years ago, one of my teachers came to me and said, "Hey, can we have an esports club?" And I had no idea what that even meant. And so I was like, okay, sure. I had no idea what it was and actually what it would grow into and become. So in February of this year, 3 of our students attended the IETA conference, and they participated in a pop-up that Cody Krebs had. And when they were there, they received so much attention because they just blew everybody out of the water. So tonight, we get to hear from Patrick Lewis, Keegan Worrell, and Alex Grover on their stories of esports, how it began, and where it's taking them.
Cool. Welcome.
Hello. So 2 years ago, that teacher is actually Mr. Klimek, and he's a pretty nice guy. So it went from like just a club, like, hey, it's an idea out there, to I guess what it is now. He went out of his way to somehow find some crazy connections. He found people with PC parts and somehow threw together 6 entire PCs and allowed for all sorts of people to go. We had, I think, around 5 or 6 different games that we ended up having to compete sophomore year. Sadly, it didn't keep the same momentum for last year or this year, since we're only the last 3 really. But it's been very fun. It's given all sorts of really weird and unique possibilities for both me, Patrick, and Alex in sophomore year, those who were there, For example, we recently got a sponsorship with STS, and they gave us all sorts of things. And the craziest part is a laptop, a gaming laptop, which is at least a few thousand. Mm-hmm. So it's a little weird to think about that a game I played for fun and just wanted to generally get better at because I thought it was cool, ended up getting me a $2,700 laptop like that. As for the future, I'm not too sure, but through what I've been told, I can just hope. And it looks pretty good, is all I can say.
Cool.
Okay, basically how I got into esports was it was sophomore year, like fall time, I think. And Keegan, he texted me and said, one of our players is not here. We have an open spot for a game that we play, which was Rocket League. He's like, it'll get you out of school. We're doing districts. all day. So I said, yeah. I said, get out of school. And it was first period. So it'd be the whole day. And I was like, oh, okay. And I already played that game. So I just thought it was going to be a one-day thing. Ended up, I forgot how we did it. I think we did decent, but like not the best. Because I never played competitively or nothing like that. But we ended up making it to state that year. And practicing, we did end up winning state that year. It was kind of like a little dream run. Just 3 friends got together and ended up winning state. So then after then, I'm like, this could be more serious than I thought it was, more than just getting out of school. This could be like something I could actually take seriously and play competitively. So then I did it junior year, and then we also got second place at the state again, barely lost to Rigby. And then it was mainly this year, though, that I seen more opportunities because it was just like the tournament that we were just talking about in, what is it called? The One Up tournament. It was in Boise. And that's the one that like opened up all our connections. And then, yeah, that's what got us in contact with Lenovo and Cody and I forget, but everyone else. And then that's when like everyone started hitting us, and it all kind of happened really fast. And that's when I was like, oh, there's a lot more opportunities than just playing for fun. Just it could take you further than what I ever thought, more than just getting out of class. So I don't know. I had really fun with it, and I'm excited for the future of it, wherever it takes me.
Very cool. Thank you.
So I'm Alex Grover. I got lucky because they kind of invited me on this year. And they let me on. They had a teammate 2 years ago, and he kind of dropped out of the scene, I guess. And they took me on the team, and they were kind of nagging me to join the team, both sophomore and junior year. And I kind of felt bad when I heard that they won state and got second place at state. I was like, man, I missed out. But so I joined this year. And it's kind of stressful doing multiple like sports and things all at once because I'm involved with band and jazz band and tennis and also now esports. And so it was kind of stressful to find times to like play, but it's easier because it's online. But joining this year has been super fun, and it's brought like very interesting opportunities that I didn't think were going to pop up. And so playing at that first tournament that we did, the one-up tournament that Patrick was talking about, that's when we got noticed, and like Lenovo and STS wanted to start sponsoring us. And like Cody was like super awesome in keeping them to that deal, and actually making the sponsorship come to fruition and getting all the goods for us. And so, yeah, no, it's just been a lot of fun, and we've had a good run this year. And I mean, for me, esports isn't like necessarily a priority in my future. But for Keegan and Patrick, I mean, they're in the spotlight now, and they can go off of a step higher than where they could have been. So yeah, it's a good opportunity, and I'm like very glad that I was able to have it this year. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to have you stay up there just for a second. Trustees, do we have any questions for these three? All right.
Yeah, so
Trustee Kirkman.
I've heard of esports, but again, like Dr. Russell, my version of esports was the Wii, and bowling and tennis on the Wii. But what games do you compete with? What sports do you compete in on esports? Not Wii sports.
We is very fun. I remember being scolded for trying to stay up because Mom and all of everybody.
He
was
looked
playing.
right at you. We see you back
Yes,
there. Yes.
So there's Rocket League, the game we play, Overwatch, Smash Brothers, League of Legends, Apex, Fortnite. Both of those two are a little difficult, but nonetheless, let's see.
So it's not like Madden football or anything like that, because that's what I think
I
of when
don't
I see
think
esports.
so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's an area, but I don't think it's as popular as
Wow.
most. Because I think most games you could play competitively, but it depends on which ones are popular. Like Fortnite, I bet even you guys have heard of it.
No, my son
Um,
has. Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 boys. Yes, yes. And a daughter. Your
I was
age.
playing it the other night.
Yeah,
No,
right.
This is great, and I think I love the spotlight because I think that's exactly what this is for. Is that
Yeah.
it shines the light on things that we are
Yep.
may be completely ignorant about, but yet there is a future. I think that a lot of people are like, oh, video games. No, I've seen some of these competitions, national, international competitions, and they get rowdy. I mean, it is competitive, and there's thousands of people in these stadiums. It's pretty impressive. So I'm glad you found a niche that might take you, or that you would work, that you have a future you can work towards. I think that's fantastic, and finding opportunities like this in our district is just flat out cool.
You're not
Trustees?
wrong. The,
I have a couple of questions. So first of all, are all 3 of you seniors?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you thinking about post-graduation plans? Are you thinking about going into game design? Has this inspired you to do anything like that? Or this is totally just a tangent? What are you guys thinking?
For me, I'm going to serve a mission for Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then after I get back, I hope to go to BYU or BYUI and probably studying computer engineering. So maybe not specifically game design, but you know, my dad is a computer engineer and my brother-in-law is going into cybersecurity.
Mhm.
And so like computers have been like, I've been around my whole life. So that's something that I plan to probably stay in for my career. But
Awesome.
Cool.
So I've got a question. So little did I know my son playing all these games. Actually, this is why it brought me to this very moment right now. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Cole, for helping me out here. Rocket League can be played as a team, correct? Is that how all of your games are based, or do you have some individual games that you guys play?
all sorts of games have like their own little gimmicks, but for Rocket League, the competitive scene is 3v3.
Is it?
There is 2v2 and 1v1s, and then there's chaos. But yeah, the competitive scene is 3 players versus another 3 players. Yeah.
Cool.
I have one question and a comment. All on PC, right? Or is it, or no?
there are
Certain
consoles.
games.
Oh, there are.
Yeah, like Rocket League can be played on a console, yes, like Xbox or PlayStation.
But do you guys ever play them for competitive reasons on the console, or is it always for PC for
Yes.
competitive?
In sophomore year, I did for sure, and it was showing its years.
Mhm.
Consoles are just like kind of restricted PCs.
Yeah.
PCs, you know, you can build your own.
Yep.
And put your own components in.
Yep.
Make it all yourself. You can buy pre-built, but PCs are typically like you run the applications all yourself. You do everything yourself on a PC, but a console is kind of run by the OS that they put on there.
Yeah.
Sony and everything.
I think that that's just what I love about this. I love the whole story of the teacher bringing it to fruition, getting you guys involved, the building of the PCs. One of my sons loves to build, right? Like we spend so much money on building computers. Like I'm like, oh, but I love it. And I love that you guys are bringing this to light. And I really hope that there's a future of passing some of this on. I hope that it doesn't really die with you guys as seniors. So, I mean, I hope that we're bringing some light to this because this is just cool. Yeah.
Chair of the Trustees, just my understanding, and these gentlemen could clarify, I guess we have some students in our middle schools that could give these guys a run for their money. I guess they're pretty
I
talented
would
kids as
imagine
well.
so.
So this idea for our district is to build a program because as Trustee Kirkman said, this is a niche that really kids can find success and be success in. There is scholarships available for this at the collegiate level. It just shocked me. It was very similar to football. I mean, there's practice times. There's times when they gotta
Amazing.
make sure they get all their grades in and they have teammates, they have game plans. I mean, it's just really impressive.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to have tryouts here pretty soon. I think a lot more people are gonna get.
I think so too. This is cool.
If it's
So-
handled right, yes.
Yeah.
I know of 2 people at the moment who are friends of mine from that sophomore year, which are at a good level at the moment. One of them is a little bit below my rank, and then another one is a little bit below that as well. So next year could be good. He's going to be a freshman, and then the other one's going to be a sophomore this year. So technically, yeah, we could have another good lineup. Just need a third, but yeah.
Very cool. Trustee
deal.
Sue?
Yeah, you guys remind me a lot of another person who adults at the time said was a loser, Tony Hawk. And
Oh.
Yeah.
Tony found a niche market and he was passionate about what he did and he created an industry for himself.
Mhm.
You guys are creating that for yourself too. You're creating opportunities. And that's the greatness of our country, right? That you can do whatever you want and be successful at it and find a career. So congratulations.
Very cool.
Are there letters awarded for this?
Yeah.
Give it time.
That's cool.
Sorry to bring up a sore
Jennings,
subject
no,
over here.
not yet.
This is cool.
It is something that we really do need to kind of explore and grow. And I think we're just starting those very beginning stages, but absolutely would like to see it move in that direction.
That's cool.
I hope you boys are as proud of yourselves as we are. And thank you so much for being our spotlight tonight and highlighting the great things that you're doing in our district and bringing this to light for us. We really appreciate you guys being here and good job, parents. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay.
You know, when they're home playing video games, the parents they can't say anything now.
Now they can't. Now you can't at all. Yeah. All right. That was our spotlight. We do have 3 updates. That's our community partners updates. So I will go ahead. That is, we've got, who do we have here tonight, Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, trustees, we reached out to the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA did not make it to the rec center. YMCA would like to come in June, but we do have tonight Melissa from the Boys and Girls Club just to give an update on some of the things they've been working on.
Perfect.
Good evening, Chair Taylor, trustees. Thanks for having me tonight. So just an update of where we're at. We are working with the school district, and hopefully in the next week or 2, we will finalize an MOU and hopefully be moving towards Centennial and opening a club there. So we are kind of in push mode, trying to get that done. With all the constructions and different things happening in the schools, we do have 2 school sites, Iowa and Willow, that are still going. So the hope is that we can transition those kids end of June and 1st of July into Centennial. With that, there's some big needs. And so as soon as we can finalize an MOU, we will be pushing hard in the community to set up a second club. We're going from a small 2 sites in schools to a facility as big as the one we have now. So there'll be everything from STEM kits and education supplies to sports equipment to pool tables to all of that. That we're going to have to hurry up and get ready so we can be open by July 1st is the goal. Dream as long as we can get the MOU finalized. And we're working on that in the next couple of weeks. I do have a request, hopefully from you guys. I'd love to give you all a tour. I know many of you have not been to the club. So I'd love to show you guys come in and check out the kids in action at the club. And so the best time to do that is 4 p.m., 4:30, because that's when all the buses and all the kids arrive and we like to show it. It's a very different feeling in a building when you have no one in the club, no kids in the club, and then 230 kids in the club. So I just extend my invitation to you guys. I'd love to set that up so you guys can see it in action.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustees, anything for Melissa?
Well, just a quick question. Did you want us to come in individually or you want us to come in as a group?
Either or, we're open. If you guys can coordinate, that's great. But if not, one-on-one's good too. Whatever works best for you guys.
Well, we're lucky to have such a great community partner.
Thank
We want
you.
to work with that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, trustees, we will now move to trustee comments and updates before we move into public comment. We will start with whichever, do we have comments tonight? No?
Well, I just want to say thank you this is our last meeting before graduations start. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of the people who have made the trip to graduation for all our kids memorable and successful and all that stuff. I know the end of the year is fatiguing, to say the least. Thank you for being there and thank you for seeing it through.
Thank you, trustee Benz. Anything else, trustees? All right, with that, we're going to move into the public comment portion of our meeting. Our clerk is going to go ahead and grab those sheets. Thank you, Clerk Lamont. Okay, so we will go ahead and begin our public comment portion. How this works is I'll call your name, you'll come to the podium, you'll speak directly into the podium, you'll be given 3 minutes, you'll be able to see it right up here on the board. You'll give us your name and address, zone, city, depending on if you live in Nampa or not. And then you'll have those 3 minutes to address the board. We have 2 people for public comment. We are going to start with Shirley Vendrell.
Chair Taylor, members of the board, Dr. Russell, it's Vendre.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Well, those athletes are going to be super hard to follow.
Give me 1 second though. Just remember to state your name and okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And then your time will
Thank you,
start
Chair
after that's
Taylor.
done.
My name is Shirley Vendre. I live in Ontario. However, I'm an advocate for many Hispanic students and parents in the Nampa School District, as I am a former teacher, vice principal, and principal in the district. As I mentioned in my introductory email, additional unacceptable events have continued to occur in the district, which you deserve to know about. As an advocate, I am concerned. Again, NHS is my focus. By way of example, one of the newer secretaries was moved from a security position in which she allegedly harassed Hispanic students. She continues to do so verbally and publicly. It is important to recognize that such unprofessional behavior in an open foyer is overheard by everyone. It sets up Anglo students who are so inclined by giving them permission to also bully their Hispanic peers. When Hispanic students react, they are the ones punished. The Nampa High School administration, including Mr. Yarborough,
One second.
has
I can't have you use names or any personnel names. Okay.
But the NHS administration has some fine accomplishments. However, less affluent Hispanic students appear to be targeted by the administration. The previous superintendent would not see me until after I had advised the then chair that I had detailed my concerns to the ACLU. Because of my concerns and those of others, the ACLU conducted a year-long investigation of all Idaho school districts. Caldwell and Nampa fared the worst vis-a-vis discrimination against students of color. ACLU filed a complaint, and during the last week of April, the DOJ conducted its own investigation in Nampa. Surely the board would like input regarding ways to address the issues raised by the ACLU. One would be to assist Mr. Yarborough, who unfortunately,
Sorry, really quick.
Right.
Yeah, I can't have you
right.
say names.
according to both what I have been told by parents and what I have personally observed, comes across as insensitive to justice and fairness for less affluent Hispanic students. The board has excellent local resources, including Dr. Baruth, Mr. Granados, Ms. Consuelo Quilantan. Nampa obviously has a gang issue, but the school district is overzealous, thus contributing to the problem. When students are incorrectly ID'd as gang affiliated, there's no escape from the label. Some eventually give up trying and fulfill the expectations. No wonder the enrollment is down, allowing for the closure or repurposing of 4 mostly Hispanic schools. Students need.
Okay, your time has expired. What we would encourage you to do is send us that entire statement to the board.
Right. I just had another.
We have to stop you at 3 minutes.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate all the great things that are happening in your district, Dr. Russell and Chair Taylor, and all of you, members of the board.
Thank you. All right, I'm probably going to butcher this name. Is it Ellery? Okay, Ellery Field. Oh, Fickle. Sorry, I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. So I'm gonna give you just the same directions. What I'm gonna have you do is, because you're a minor, I don't want you to state your address. I want you to give me your city and your zone if you know it. So you'll read your name, and then if you know your zone, say it. If not, tell us your city or the school you attend. That would work as well. and then your 3 minutes will start as well. Okay.
Wonderful. Hello, my name is Ellery Fickle. I'm a student at Skyview High School, and more importantly, I'm a member of the Skyview High School Band. Today, I want to discuss with you our youth instrumental music programs and why students should be heavily encouraged to participate in them. Firstly, I will be discussing the researched benefits of music education. Next, I will be covering local interests from surveyed 5th grade students from Centennial Elementary School. And lastly, I'll be covering some ways we can make sure music is an enjoyable, accessible experience for everybody. Firstly, we will discuss the research benefits of music education for children, especially earlier in life. A study completed by the University of British Columbia found that musicians had significantly higher grades in math, science, and English compared to their peers. Besides just academic benefits, musicians' brains were also found to have stronger connections to the frontal and temporal lobes, areas involved in memory and executive functions. The functionality and neurological benefits remain even if the instrument is not continued later in life. Now, isn't that just wonderful? Personally, music has strengthened my work ethic and showed me that hard work and discipline can foster amazing results. I have met others who have showed the same level of dedication as me, not only in our local bands, but also in local honor groups. And something I also think these studies leave out is that the ability to be musical is a benefit within its own right, and it's something the musician can be proud of throughout their life. Next, I wanted to discuss student interest in instrumental music programs. I conducted a survey with the 4th and 5th grade students at Centennial Elementary School. Out of the 75% students surveyed, 55% expressed interest in a 5th grade band program, and 32% are currently taking lessons or teaching themselves an instrument. This is significant numbers, but why should we care? These students are clearly interested. I want to make sure they have the best experience possible. Personally, I have felt very supported as a musician in our district. You have sent me to All-State. You've sent me to state solo. You've allowed me to have so many incredible experiences as a musician, and I thank you for that. And I want to make sure these upcoming students are able to be just as successful and have just as much fun. So how can we achieve this? Firstly, I feel a large problem we have here in our district is there's no really great place for beginning band students to learn the basics of their instrument, because 6th grade beginning band students are in an ensemble environment, where the goal is to create music as a group. Students are often left confused on different instrument-specific techniques that cannot be taught in an ensemble setting. This is where 5th grade band programs would come in. Students can learn proper technique, music reading, embouchure development, and rhythmic accuracy far before they are introduced into a performance ensemble. Even if this is not feasible for our current district, I still believe that students should have a better environment for developing basics, such as group lessons hosted during mentor time for our 6th grade students. This time could be easily used and allocated for these upcoming musicians. Every section would have a better opportunity to understand their basics and get help on music one-on-one. They would also just have the ability to receive new practice material that is more specific to them. There's so much information regarding this topic, so I have prepared handouts for you guys with ideas on how to support music education. And as you guys continue scheduling, calendar, and facility improvements and budgets, I hope you all have a better understanding on the true value of music education as a district. Thank you. I did have a little tricky problem with these, so one of them was
Ellery, you did.
Thank you.
So good. It was a great presentation.
There you go.
And getting it down to that 3 minutes was amazing as well. Did you put your contact information? You did.
I did. So there's the contact information for me. I included everything I went over in the speech, as well as more reasons that I think, more ways that I think the school district can really benefit young musicians. I am clearly very passionate about it, and it can really have just the most amazing impact on students. And I want to see you encouraging and fostering that for our upcoming generation.
Well, and look at the impact that you have had on us tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was great. All right, trustees, that is the end of our public comment portion of the evening. Okay. All right, we will then move into the consent agenda. Trustees, I will entertain a motion or discussion on the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are now in the action portion of our meeting. A, nutrition services. Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight, Mr. Stauffer is going to share about our nutrition service bids and update you on where we are with that, and we'll take an action as an action.
Trustee Taylor, Board of Trustees. In your packet, you have our nutrition bids for janitorial services, or excuse me, janitorial, I got to rephrase that. That's the next one. Paper and cleaning products and food products, bread products, and dairy products for the next calendar year for the Food Nutrition Service Department. This went out through a competitive bid. We included all the documentation for you to look at. And then in the packet is included those that have been the lowest pricing and therefore the best products for the school district to consider. And I'm open to take any questions that you may have through that process.
Trustees, any questions for Mr. Stoffer, or I will also entertain a
Yes,
motion?
I have
Okay.
a question, Chair. I'm just trying to find there's just more clarification. The bread products bid ranking. I'm waiting for it to open up here.
Oh, take your time.
Well, I'm going as fast as the computer will let me.
Trustees, any other questions while we're waiting for Trustee Kirkman's computer?
I do have, I don't know. Are any of these companies local? Okay.
Trustee Taylor, Trustee Benz, yes. Some of these, particularly our bread, it's coming from a local vendor. They actually won that bid, and so it's actually a great resource for us as well. So we do try to look at those when it's appropriate and when the financing is also making sense. But yes, we love the local component as much as possible.
Awesome. Thank you.
So the Cisco was awarded, if I'm reading this right, and I tried to dive into the details a little bit, the bread portion of the contract. And I think it was also split evenly to some extent. My question is on the Cisco, when you look in the spreadsheet, the comments there where Cisco did not provide product formulation statements or nutritionals on some of these bread products, but we selected them anyways, or the recommendation is to select them as a provider? Or am I missing something there?
Trustee Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, there were some products that they did not. The products that they received, we did put in the package, but there were some products that they were weeded out of that they did not have the descriptor, so they did not get in those purchases.
Oh, so those items will not be
correct.
Like the hamburger buns or
Correct.
whatever that they didn't provide any information on. They're not providing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's my understanding of when I spoke to Director Eggers about that. That was how it was explained as well.
okay.
Okay, trustees, any other questions? Great question, because the way that it reads, I think that needed clarification for sure. Because it does say Cisco did not provide product formulation statements or nutritionals. We have no kind of right? Like the reading itself. So I think that was a great point of clarification.
And Trustee Taylor, one of the other things to that is they also put in multiple bids as well. So there's multiple different types of bid on their product lines. So some of the product lines may not have received that, but other product lines did.
Right.
Great. Trustees, any other questions for Mr.
Yeah,
Stoffer?
there's a lot to this.
There's quite a bit.
this.
And just as a reminder, these are yearly, which you'll see these. So these are year pieces that we put together and getting ready for the upcoming school year.
Okay. Trustees, questions or motion?
I move that we accept the bid package as outlined.
Okay. Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stoffer. We are now going to move on to B, the ABM contract. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, trustees, Mr. Stoffer is going to share with us about our ABM contract. This is our custodial service contract that we work with and partner with, and again, looking at a bid for an action item tonight.
Trustee Taylor, trustees, this is a contract that we've been working on for a while.
I feel like you should say me again.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah,
Okay.
again, right?
Again, yes. Go ahead.
We have spent a lot of time working on this contract with lots of different focus points, and one of those focus points has been primary, which is the price point. We know, and we have discussed a lot of the increases that have happened in just the inflation across the nation, and it's impacted us here locally. And we were able to negotiate with ABM to keep it at a 1% increase. That's the overall increase from what we're currently at to this new proposed contract. There were some things that we had to negotiate through that did change a few of our services, which we feel are they're in the best interest of the district at this time with where we are at. And so we are happy with the negotiations. We're happy with what the ABM was able to propose and work with us. It did take quite a bit to get to this point. We got some things in it that we wanted as well, including guarantees of minimum of work hours and employees being in buildings. That was a big thing that we really wanted, and we did get that in this bid. We also did clarify some things that were murky or not as clear in some of our previous contract language. We were able to shore up as well. So overall, we think that both sides negotiated in really good faith. And with this amendment to our current contract, again, the current contract does have a clause that can be renewed for 5 years. And we're recommending that with these amendments that we have put into place, that we do award ABM the contract or a renewal of their contract for the next 5 years. And with that, I'm open to answer any questions that the board may have.
So this is kind of a rhetorical question because I've asked this before, but I just want to ask it for public, just for the public to know, because I constantly ask, would it be more beneficial for us to take our, our janitorial services back in-house? And so I just, for the record, would love for you to explain why we continue to contract outside.
Absolutely. Chair Taylor, Board of Trustees, one of the things about taking a contract of this size and nature, of our volume, amount of buildings, and just our size and amount of square footage, the first difficult phase you have is the capital cost that you accrue by bringing in all the equipment and all the things that you need just to start the services. That in and of itself is, I did run some numbers. That would be over $1 million just to bring in the right equipment for us to start receiving the services. The second component to it is really we are able to manage our employee costs a little bit better by subcontract. That's one of the reasons why you subcontract, is to manage some of those additional costs that come with employees. So overall, the cost benefit to the district is much more effective to go out for contract. And that's what led us to this 10 years
Correct.
ago, was the need to navigate some financial pitfalls that we had many years ago. The challenge for us is right now of current financial status. We don't necessarily have that financial means to be able to accrue such a capital increase, and then also converting that into the salaries and et cetera that would come with that. The benefits are one, financial. Two, we have a better agreement, I think, with this amendment that we have, that we've defined more of what the expectations are, where there were some hazy lines between maintenance, custodial, grounds that we needed to navigate through. And I think we've been able to accomplish that to give us a better product. So initially, those are the major points. There are other smaller subtle points, but those are the major points.
And I think that sufficiently answers it. I just get that question from time to time. And so I know that we've talked about it. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page with it. Thank you for answering that.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Stoffer.
Well, Chair Taylor, also there's, the contract services. Now, let me just jump to the next question. I'm a little bit confused on the employee fill rate in amendment to, or section D, I think, of the amendment. This is our recourse if services aren't provided.
Correct.
So absenteeism more than 2 days without full sub coverage. So if a contractor is supposed to be on site to provide the services and they aren't for 2 days, then we have some recourse. And that recourse is a reduction in billing based off working days. What's the billing? Are we paying a service hour rate to this contractor, or how do you determine what that billing date is?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, actually, if you look in that a little bit further, it gives you a little bit more clarity on that. So the hourly rate will be credited back, will be aligned with the current starting custodial wage. So they will reimburse us the amount of money based off of that hourly wage.
Of that person that's supposed to be there, that's not.
Correct.
So if that person is making $25 an hour,
Will be reimbursed at that rate.
okay. Is that continuing? That's in, as long as that vacant, as long as nobody's there, they will just keep reimbursing. Is there language in the contract that states how the details of that will be reimbursed to the district?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, there's been a procedure. There isn't necessarily a contract amendment. Is that, again, it will be credited back And so basically
could
what
be at the
happens
end of
when
the
they
month
bill us,
or-
they have a line item. We have a spreadsheet that we use to track the attendance that we share and we work back and forth on. When we look at that total, then we match that total back to the billing, and there's a credit line on the actual billing that they send us. They have a credit back line.
Okay, and for services that aren't provided to the expectations that we want, how do we deal with that with the contract?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, great question. One of the things that we have instituted this year is that we have a monthly and a weekly meeting with the maintenance director that meets with the director of ABM, and we do site visits. So we try to address those more frequently than we potentially have in the past. And so our understanding of the buildings and their cleanliness is a little bit better than what I believe it has been in the past. Also, I don't think it hurts that we're, to be very transparent, that we're in the middle of a contract year. They've been very willing to work with us and look at those items that have been on our list. The second component to that is we do have a survey that goes out monthly to the principals and to the staff that asks for their information on how they feel their building is. And so we take those in the site visits and review those with the ABM staff and management team.
So you would be, for all intents and purposes, the contract monitor for this contract and others added to your lengthy list of duties and responsibilities. Okay.
Can I piggyback off that really quick? But aren't those new accountability measures as of this last year, everything that you're talking about, right? Because this came to you and these are the new accountability measures that we've just recently put into play over the last year. Okay, I just need a clarification in my mind.
And those are written down, those are understood by both sides. I mean, I think that when you're working with contracts and you got a good contractor, things seem to go very, very well and smooth. But sometimes when a contractor doesn't always meet the expectations, if those expectations aren't, and I like the amendments in here, if those aren't spelled out, then we find ourselves with paying for services that we're not seeing.
Chair Taylor and Trustee Kirkman, I think you articulated that well. That's what we've been working on in this past year, is to really solidify this contract in particular, as some others, but this one has been at the forefront the last year and a half to get it in line with what we want as far as expectations in our services. Do I think that we're going to have some hiccups throughout the process? I think you will. That's when you're in the service industry and it's based off of personnel, that is always going to have some ups and downs with it. But I do think we're in a much better position to navigate this contract in particular with the checks and balances that we have in place. I also do believe that as we work forward with the new schedule that we're going to have, we're going to have to get used to it. There are a little bit less services in some areas with this contract than what we've had in previous contract. And that was in part of the responsibility that you asked me to keep this within inside our parameters financially. So there is some changes, and I do want to make sure, and we've talked to administrators about that. We've talked about what an A day, B day schedule will look like. But we do feel that this will still meet our needs, but it is a little bit of a reduction in some of the services that we did receive in the previous contract. Just for a reminder, in the information I sent you previously, there was a significant increase if we left services as is. There was quite a significant increase. Understandably, we needed to revisit the services in order to get it into the right ballpark that we needed it.
And just, sorry, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to jog my memory. Didn't we have this directive about like all of these accountability pieces like a year and a half ago? Didn't we start having this conversation? And I think you brought up the accountability measures then, right? It was a meeting. Okay, sorry, I just needed clarification. Okay, sorry, thank you.
So there's some services that would probably be noticeable that aren't in this contract or in past contracts. And I'm just going to throw this out as an example because I see it when I go to Columbia, that back parking lot and those, whatever, sometimes that gets pretty trashy, but that's not the contractor's responsibility to maintain the outside parking lot and the trash and stuff like that, is it?
So,
or will it be in this current contract?
Trustee Taylor,
If
Trustee
approved.
Kirkman, it was a component of theirs previously. We're taking, because we have done some work with our grounds team and redefined some of their roles, there is some shared responsibility for some of those areas that you're talking about specifically in Columbia. But that is also part of the in-house that we're going to be working on that as well to help navigate it. Because in this, like I said, in this contract, we had to make some concessions.
Sure.
And previously it was, and I don't feel that it was being serviced as well as we would have hoped it to be. With this new one, we now have 2 eyeballs on it, if that makes sense, versus just 1 set. So we're trying to make adjustments for that particular type of need at that building. And I think every building has some of those uniquenesses that are
But
there for them.
Us adding those eyeballs came with a price reduction.
Correct.
So what I hear you say is we haven't added eyeballs and paid the same price. What we've done is we've changed some of the accountabilities with our ground maintenance team, reduced costs, kept it within reason. And
I think this is headed in the right direction.
yeah, I just wanted to make
Given
sure.
the circumstances that
Yeah.
we have. So no, I appreciate the work and the clarification on some of those.
I agree. I appreciate the work on this one as well. Sorry. Trustees? Trustee Sue?
I'm not familiar. In my professional world, I don't do multi-year contracts because of non-appropriations clauses. How does it work in this sense when, I mean, the price is set on a 5-year with the non-appropriations clause built into it? How does it work if there's a drastic downturn in our economy and we have to come back and renegotiate?
Trustee Taylor, Chair Taylor, Trustee Sue, in the actual contractual language, we do have some clauses inside of there that's by Idaho code that we have the ability. Our attorney reviewed all those to make sure that they were in there. He made sure that we had the right language. He approved all of that, but there are some clauses in there that allow us to reopen it and renegotiate based off of those downturns. And also there's the other part too. If we have all of a sudden upturn and we need to bring on a school, we have the ability to go in and negotiate with them to bring on one as well. So there's lots of language that this is the addendum. So the full contract has that language in it. This is an addendum to that piece.
And that's pretty standard,
It
especially
is.
with working with government organizations
It
when
is.
you're dependent on
Next year's budget.
next
Yeah.
year's budget.
Yep.
We don't know about.
Yeah, that we don't know about. I love that you added that in, actually.
Trustee Sue, did I answer that
Yes, you did.
sufficiently?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustees, any additional questions for Mr. Stuffer? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair Taylor, I'll move that we approve the 4th Amendment between the Nampa School District and ABM Industrial Groups LLC.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Stuffer. We are now going to move to C, Policy 3010, our open enrollment policy. Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight is a amendment to a policy we have around open enrollment. About a year ago, the state legislature had passed a new law providing some due process rights for parents around open enrollment, and those are spelled out in here. During some discussions of that, it came to the administration to maybe be more specific about timelines. And then reading in that and working with our legal team, there was a recommendation to make some adjustments to this policy around student appeals. Since one of the laws now requires the ability for parents to have due process right in front of the school board. So you'll see that section is in, I believe it starts at line 115 is the new student appeals section. And that runs down into lines 143. It provides timeline and more specific guidance to school boards if an appeal were to reach the board level.
Chair Taylor, quick question.
Please.
Dr. Russell, on line 49 through 52, those 3 bullet points, those 3 priorities, are those in order of priority? Line 49. Are those in order of priorities, like first this, then this, or?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, those are not in priority order. Those are just what is lined out in code that either one of those, it can be in any order, could be used as a denial for open enrollment or a revocation for open enrollment.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Chair Taylor. Just for clarification, are any of the blues alterations to the previous policy?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, Trustee Jennings, the blue are adjustments that we made in prior. It's a formatting issue. It probably should be black. I think it's just because we went back to the original edited one and that's why it came up there. But those are not adjustments. I noticed that as well.
But they're previous, but not to this.
They were
time.
previous adjustments when we first adopted policy 3010. They should be black, and I'll work with Tyler of maybe clean this up so that those don't come up next time. Because pretty soon we're gonna have purple or yellow on there. It's really hard for us to tell.
And if you're colorblind, you're gonna be just
It's all
lost.
black. Yeah.
Chair Taylor, I did have, so in that edition at the student appeals, on starting on line 115, you can pull that back up, Tyler, sorry. Is this language specific? Is this the language from the statute?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, the dates and times is, however, this is expanded upon by our legal to provide more guidance on what that might look like, because I believe the state statute only mentions an appeal at the board level. I don't believe it goes into the specific detail of that.
Well, here's my question
have
on
to
the
double check on it,
timelines. There's some confusion for me anyways, and I think probably someone who's going through this process. For example, if, so in one, on line 118, if open enrollment application revoked or denied, blah, blah, blah. Through a written request, and I believe that's supposed to be within instead of with 5 school days, within 5 school days of written notice of the denial. So my question is that, and further on down, in 2, I think that second sentence there, line 124, right around there, the parent or guardian must review the request the review in writing within 5 school days of receiving the written denial notice. So my question is, when do we know or that they got that denial notice?
So Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, when they receive that denial notice through email, because we do send them through email, is when they have electronic records. So if you receive that email.
So it's always going to be through email. We have the date stamp and time stamp on that email. Then.
We do.
It doesn't go through regular snail mail, or if so, does it go certified so we know exactly when they got it?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, to my knowledge, we have not sent any out snail mail in quite some time. It is electronic. It is through email. So we do have that timestamp that which starts that 5-day window
Very
for the
good.
parent then to appeal back. And I agree, some of that does get confusing, particularly when you get further deeper into the parent needs to send their appeal, and then administration needs to provide their justification or reasons for the revoking or denying.
But all that can be tracked as far as a timeline via email.
Via email.
That's really what I wanted to focus on, is because that could come up in, okay, well, I didn't get this until
Absolutely
10 days later or something.
Trustee Benz.
Yeah, and then just a quick clarifying question. When does the application window close? We do not, so potentially we could have, we've talked about school days, but we could have somebody applying for open enrollment over the summer where there's no school.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, that is accurate. There is no closing for open enrollment. That is through Idaho code. Open enrollment can be open at all times, and they could apply over the summer. We do have people that are working throughout the summer that have that, and then we would.
Responsibility.
Right, so I guess the question is, should we change that from school days to work days?
Well, that's statutory thing.
Oh,
Chair Taylor and Trustee Benz, it's a question we could ask. I don't know the answer other than asking through our legal and seeing what their thoughts are around that word change. I do believe the code does say school days currently. Could double check that though.
Dr. Russell, I just have a clarification on process. So when we deny an open enrollment, does our policy in its totality go out with that denial so that the parent is made aware of the policy?
Chair Taylor, that's a great question. I don't believe it does, but what does I'm going to look at Mr. LeBou, who.
It's just a note.
Mr. LeBou, would you come forth and be able to share?
So we do have a prepared note in response that goes out. I think one of the things that you'll find interesting is you have not had any make it to you yet. So we've been navigating things, and for the most part, we really try to approve open enrollments.
No, and I see that, and I think that Dr. Russell, I think that Dr. Russell does a really good job of letting us know that, and I think you guys take a lot of these into consideration. I think my question comes more from with the changes that we've made in the school closures, right? Like, will we see more? And so that's where my question came from. But I do want to let you know that that's advocated for all the time, and I feel like you guys go to the ends of the earth to try to place students where they want to be.
It is a pre-populated message, so it is something that we could adjust.
Well, I think just if it's an email, you just add an
Add the
attachment
policy
to
in.
it.
Yeah.
The-
Or the link. or
The
whatever.
pre-populated link or attachment.
Yeah.
Policy. To Ben's, I know, trustee Benz, I got your name down. I couldn't remember the title. Trustee Benz's comment or question about the school days versus work days, those are often very different. So I think clarification would be necessary because we have staff working through the summer, albeit, I think it's just Dr. Russell. I think everyone else is off, but those aren't school days.
Could I add one thing to that? Once they make an application, we have 60 days to respond once the window opens. So typically we would not be responding over the summer. So that 5 days would actually probably come after they came back.
But then how would the parent know where their child is attending?
Their homeschool would be where they would be attending until that open enrollment's addressed, which is why we open it early. And you guys had asked when it opens and when it closes, and really it's open all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
But 30 days or 60 days. So if they want their student to attend a certain school, they need to put that in.
and we don't wait that long
Okay.
typically. I mean,
That would be a really, really exception to the.
Yeah,
But
no,
it's 60 days,
normal
it's got to be statutory, right? That's 60 days of response. Like we have, yeah.
Yeah, Chair Taylor, it is statutory, and this year was a little bit different.
It
We
was.
did wait a little bit longer than we normally have,
Sure.
partly because boundaries were being redrawn. So
Sure.
it was really hard for us to see that. So if the public's out there listening and saying it took a long time for me to get it, that was the reason why. But historically and typically, our open enrollment process is much quicker.
I think the public's really aware that this year was very different, right? Trustees, yes. So
we
yes.
were able, I mean, there were literally hundreds that were
Yes.
approved because of your boundary changes. So we didn't
just
have to
opened
approve
the
for open
floodgates.
enrollment, but
Yeah.
just because of the boundaries.
And I think we've done a really good job navigating it as well. I just
Mhm.
think it was clarification because it's just been a different year.
It has.
Trustees, any other questions for Dr. Russell or Dr. Russell or Mr. LeBeau?
I have a question, but it's not specifically around this, but it is about the reapplication, re-enrollment things. We have a new system this year, new form system. And should parents, so before we could just re-register day of back to school, do whatever, how imperative is it, since people are watching, for us to get that sooner rather than later?
So we've really kind of operated from this being our ground zero first year. So next year will be that continuing status. And so navigating that, the parents do have to let us know and somehow that they would like to continue.
Yeah, so Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, I would say it's very important. The sooner the parents can get us that information, the better off we are of being able to get students registered into classes and us understanding where our capacities are at our school, so we can answer questions like this when open enrollment does come.
Thank you.
And then Dr. Russell, for clarification, just because I'd have to get my phone out, my computer locked me out of my email. Our legal suggestions were because of due process, right?
Chair Taylor, it was the legal's interpretation of the law of due process.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Which I'll have a lot of questions for legal on that. But, question for maybe Clerk Lamont on this policy. Is this do we have to do a first reading or second reading, or is that on new policies?
I believe our policy, you can do, I think the recommendation is to approve as presented. I'm assuming a first and final reading, it doesn't say that. The policy we do have, it does recommend
Okay,
two
that's
readings,
all I'm
but
sure.
I think this is requesting first and final reading.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, this is a first and final reading. We can do some questions around the school day, work day. Some of the due process requirements in here are not in code, could get clarification on that. It does say though, there needs to be an appeal to the school board. How the appeal is shaped out, that is what our legal interpreted into the hearing process.
So
Chair Taylor, I just want to make sure the board also is aware, I just emailed the code regarding open enrollment as well and loaded it in the board packet.
Can we just assume that's in this proposed policy?
I believe it is, but I wanted to make sure you knew that as well.
Okay.
So trustees, we, again, if we want to, we can approve a first reading and we can finalize at the next meeting. I just, I would propose that with it being due process, that from here on, when we notify families, that we send our policy. That would be my only suggestion. I'm fine with the motion as it stands, but
Well, if the decision is to approve this first and final reading, there's not going to be any changes, obviously.
correct.
Does the staff need another reading to make whatever changes, or are we substantively good to go?
Chair Kirkman, Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, the staff is ready. If the board would do a first and final approve as presented today, the adjustments we can make would be to add it in with a letter or at least a link to the board policy. We could do something along those lines. I'll check and we could give an update on that.
And that's just operationally more.
And then it just would be the board understanding the potential of more hearings.
Okay.
And then do we have any concern around the language of the school day versus work day?
That's what I was wondering, if you're going to get clarification, if that needs to be put in the policy.
Chair Taylor, absolutely. Trustee Kirkman, we could go back and I don't know if there's a rush for this immediately. So we could go back and talk with legal and we could bring it in June, again, with that update and some of those questions.
Yeah, I don't feel like there is a rush, trustees, because I'd like to have an understanding on the student versus work day.
Yeah, Chair Taylor, just to be clear, and again, for those listening, it is state code. So parents have the right to appeal to the school board. This just gives out some directions into it. And because there was some question about how that appeal process would go.
Chair Taylor, would it complicate things a little bit if we had a conditional approval?
I think we just wait. If there's no rush.
Yeah, if there's no rush, I'm not sure. We've never done that.
I would probably recommend just approval of the first reading and then they can bring back possible options.
Because it's not going to hold up any open enrollment application.
Right, because you guys are already doing your,
I think that's what people are thinking, like, no, let's move this down, but it's not, because we have the statute and so on. So, well, Chair Taylor, if there's no other questions, I don't want to jump in front of any. I'll move that the board approve the amendments to policy 3010 open enrollment as presented for first reading.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion passes. Just for clarification, that was approved as a first reading, and we want to see language around the student versus workday. Sorry, the school day versus workday. Okay, we will now move on to D, district student handbooks. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight are our district handbooks. The district portion, our school handbooks have two portions, a district portion and a school specific portion. In the board memo, and Mr. Yarborough could come forth and just share a little bit more about some of the edits, but you'll see some of the edits that we were made. Elementary doesn't seem like there was hardly any other than some grammatical things. Middle school, there was an edit made around some of the discussions we had with the Department of Justice last week. I think it's mentioned there in the board memo. And then high school had a few changes, but it mostly had to do with, I think, trimester and semester and kind of making some of those word changes. But Mr. Yarborough is here to clarify or answer any questions you may have.
Dr. Russell, Chair Taylor, yes, as Dr. Russell described, there were track changes on there. The biggest piece we did from an academic lens was the addition of some language around AI and incorporating that within our already the policy that already exists on academic dishonesty and then cyberbullying. That came from a task force we ran with our curriculum and instruction department around how we could give teachers and parents and students guidance of how to use AI appropriately within a school setting. Lots of collaboration around districts in the area and looking at that. The argument at this time is to not put an AI policy into place because it's changing so rapidly, but rather use existing policy to tie those things in from an academic dishonesty mechanism and the cyberbullying piece. So that piece was added added into all three handbooks. And then again, as Dr. Russell alluded to, some grammatical changes, particularly in the elementary grammatical pieces, and then the trimester language rather than quarters or semesters. And then finally, in the middle school handbooks, there was one specific sentence which referenced specific sports numbers, if you will, around jerseys being worn. In our experience in working with our SROs, there are specific numbers that can be gang affiliated. We, after meeting with the DOJ and talking that through, we decided to strike that language and leave that tied to, again, behavior for a particular student, not just the carte blanche of wearing a particular jersey number. And so that's the addition that was, or that's the sentence that was stricken from the middle school policy. It should be middle school portion of the handbook.
Just as clarification, is the summation new this year? The summation of the changes?
Yes.
This is so good.
Yep.
I just want you to know
Yep.
it's everything.
The credit for that goes to Miss Tammy Wallen. Tammy Wallen is my assistant and did a great job of putting
Please
those
tell
together.
her thank you,
and
because this
takes
was
care of
a
that for
great
us. And so,
summation of
yep.
what to look for when we read through this. So that was my comment on this one this year.
I would preface that when we get to the building specific, that'll be a little bit harder to do because there are some building pieces, but we will work on that. And again, the big piece is you'll see probably leading into next month, the building specific portions will probably be around making sure that new parents to the building with the reboundary and the closing of buildings, making sure that they're very aware and touching bases with all of those parents. So, but those should be in for the June meeting for you to review at the building specific portions. So
That's helpful. Trustees, any questions for Mr. Yarba?
Yes, I'm sorry. You said that the AI policy was in all three. I don't see it in the elementary.
It's on, am I looking at the elementary? I thought I was.
pull up
Maybe I clicked on the
elementary.
wrong one.
Should be in
It is
elementary.
Yeah, it's
They
it's
understand it
in,
more than anyone.
it's on page
page 6, I believe.
6, yeah. Plagiarism and cheating.
Okay. So the other one's formatted as artificial intelligence as the header.
Mhm.
And then I couldn't find it at all.
Yep.
And okay.
And that is one of the things that the formatting piece, and Ms. Wallen alluded to that in her memo, is that when we get all the building specific pieces, we want to make sure, because the actual pages per handbook may change. So we need to format all that and fold in that other information from the building specific. So we'll definitely look at that, Trustee Sue, to make sure that it's clear and you can identify it.
So here's my question, Chair Taylor. And really my only issue with all of these handbooks is why bring it to us when it's not finalized for approval? Including the formatting, including everything, why not bring us a finished final product for approval rather than approving it or getting the approval and then going back and making whatever changes might need to be made?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, one of the things that happens is trying to get these in multiple languages and things that we can do to get out to folks. That translation takes time, and the district specific portions are going to be in every handbook. So looking at that and then folding in what those have, that's why we haven't done it. We've tried it this way rather than giving you 21 handbooks to look at, because we wanted to break it down of getting the chunk of that's in every handbook, and then you can look at the building specific. If you would prefer us not to do that in the future, we can definitely take that in advice.
I liked it.
No, I like it.
I liked it this way.
I think maybe the question was either not communicated the right way or misinterpreted, but the formatting is not finalized. That's in the memo. That will happen after the school specific section. Oh, maybe that's what we were just talking about.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I get a little bit, it bothers me to finalize something that's not final or to approve something that's not final. Does that make sense? I get where you're coming from, and I think that totally makes sense. I'm just trying to square both of this together.
go ahead,
Are
Trustee
we-
Ben.
Are we just, maybe I'm misunderstanding, we're just approving the language.
The
We're
district
not,
portion.
yeah, the district
Yes.
portion. We're not approving the layout or the format. The formatting will happen after everything's all put together. We're just approving the language so that each school knows what they're dealing with.
We're actually just approving, if we approve tonight, what they've asked us for is just that district portion.
yep.
We will see another portion of handbooks come.
Right.
Okay.
But we're just approving the language that was given to us tonight that's coming from the district that will be common across all handbooks. And then the schools will have their own unique addenda for their schools, which will come at a later time.
That is what we are
Yes.
being asked to
Okay,
do.
perfect.
Correct. Yes, we have not approved that. That's not what we are doing, but that is what our request is from our
Well,
administration.
yeah,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
okay, okay, yes.
And Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, Trustee Kirkman, the reason for that is many of the things that each of our schools do from a PBIS scenario or specific core values or those types of things are specific to that school. And we encourage our buildings to build that culture with the tie of these are the district pieces that we have to maintain for HRS work, and that idea of building a highly reliable system, and then the autonomy for where you do have autonomy at the building level. And that's that piece. One of the other challenges very specific to this year, Trustee Kirkman, is the timing of it. With the closing down of buildings and the reboundary of all those things, we had a lot of load on our principals and buildings that normally would be maybe able to get these in May. There's some pieces that they need to navigate through, understanding new populations, new size, all those things. And we felt like it was a benefit to give them a bit more buffer of time. And so that's why the building specific portions are coming a bit later than normal. So.
I preferenced it this way. I feel like the handbooks every year are a huge chunk to bite off. So I feel compelled to try to read every single handbook we have. I liked this year being able to look at a portion of the language and then know what I was looking at individually. Just personally, I liked this portion. I don't always like it, but with this one, being at the third year, I just find handbooks massive. And I feel very compelled to read them because somebody's going to ask me someday about something and then say it was in the handbook and I approved it. And I'm going to be like, okay, look, right. So I appreciated it this way, but that was just me. Any other questions, trustees? Or we can entertain a motion? Or did you?
I have one question. So on the marking periods, I know we're going to the trimester, so we're reducing the marking periods from 4 to 3 to match that, which means there's no midterms for each trimester. It's just the final grade. Okay.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, there is within special education, there will still be progress reports, which won't necessarily fall there and maybe on a more 6 weeks cadence as we work that through with our special education department and some of our special populations that we serve and how those things are. But yes, as an actual grade and what that looks like, that doesn't mean that we won't have grades updated and students and parents hopefully seeing that within the cadence of what we're doing every 2 weeks within how we want to have grades updated within our grade book and work those things through. So,
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, if you would like, we could work with schools on during 4 weeks into a trimester or whatever it is, send out something through Parent Square to remind parents to check on grades, those type of things. That communication's doable through Parent Square if that would be the board's desire.
Oh, I was just making sure I was understanding. So thank you.
Okay. Trustees, additional questions, comments?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the district portion of the elementary, middle, and high school handbooks for the 2024-2025 year as presented.
I second. Oh, motion has been made and seconded by Trustee Benz. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Oh,
Yeah, with some reservation, I will vote aye.
okay. Do you want me to hold off on that second so you can? Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We are now going to move into E, the 2024-2025 student calendar. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight is a recommendation to approve a student parent calendar. This was similar to the calendar that was presented last month. I believe there was some questions from the board about wanting to see some more information. So we tried to include as much information as we possibly could into the board packet. You'll see there's a 15-year calendar graphic, which talks about our calendar through the past 15 years. You'll actually see the calendar that we're looking to approve in it. You'll see the board memo, and then there's a comparison, which again shows kind of ours versus what other school districts are doing and ours. The proposed schedule is also in there as well. That talks around the hour, the length of the day. The school start times again, which are again recommended. I know there was some discussion about wanting to shorten the elementary day, and again, that's still possible. It can be done if we move our high school start times and end times. It is also still possible, depending on our busing contract, which we are aware of. We are out and bidding for right now, but that could have an impact on it. But as it stands today, that would be our start and end times. And then there's other information around secondary bell schedules that's in there. And then our a draft of student staff calendar, so you could see what Fridays staff would be possibly working. And again, that's something that discussing through working with our negotiations, but just wanted to provide that information as well. So happy to try to answer any questions you may have. If there's any information more that you need, I'm happy to try to get that for you as well.
Trustees, questions for Dr. Russell?
So the recommendation to approve this calendar is all of those attachments. The recommendation is to approve the calendar, right? Okay, so in the memo, though, it also states the district recommends adopting a student calendar that has Friday as a non-contact student day, which we did last time, right?
Right.
We had approved that. So what's the recommended from the district, the recommended start times? Am I missing something? Is there an attachment that I didn't click on? Or which one should I be clicking on?
So in your board packet, it would be, if the calendar that we were proposing is the second loaded document, the 24-25 NSD district calendar parent _ student PNG. There you go. Tyler's brought it up there. That's the one that would have the proposed school start time. It would also show what Fridays are off or not, because some aren't. When we have those Mondays off, we will be going to school on some Fridays. It has the start of the school year time. It has the end of the school year time. It also has our holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and spring break times. I believe this may be beneficial for parents as they start kind of trying to plan around that, and just wanted to kind of get that portion out. Thought that would be helpful at this time.
So, trustees.
So
Go
we're
ahead.
not, sorry, Chair Taylor.
Yep, I get it. Go ahead, ask your question, because I think we have a really good question here too that's
So
going to help
what we're
everybody.
being asked to take action on is not necessarily the start and end times, it's the calendar.
That's why I don't have a question. You've always got the question. I don't need to ask them.
Yeah, Chair.
That was also Trustee
Chair
Jennings'
Taylor,
question,
Trustee
yes.
Kirkman, that is accurate. We are asking right now just for the start of school, the end of school, holidays, things, so that families can plan.
Okay,
And
so
to-
I do want to be clear, right now we are proposing those start end times, but because our bus contract isn't finished, those could adjust a few minutes. If the board would like to right now and tell the administration, no, we would like to get elementary school at 4:15. Therefore, we need to start high school at 7:25 and end at 3:31. We can make that decision right now, but the administration is just requesting the actual calendar here, and it does recommend the 50 days per student contact first semester, second semester. So it would be approving a 150-day student contact day as well.
and I think looking at this from the perspective of a parent, because I get a lot of these questions too, we're taking this whole process in chunks, bite chunks. The first one we did,
The
well, the
Fridays.
school days, yeah.
Correct.
Then we had to decide whether it's a Monday or a Friday. Now we're deciding the whole calendar, the start day of the calendar, the end day, and all the days in between. Next comes the start times and the end times for both elementary and secondary, but that could be incumbent upon what the new busing contract. So we're taking these as big of bites as we can out of this whole process. We'd love to do it all at once, but there's just some things that pop up that we have to address. So this right now is specifically the days of the calendar, and then either today or whenever address the times of those days. Okay.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, that is well summarized.
Dr. Russell, Chair Taylor, I just want to make sure. So what I'm hearing is that the board will need to have a special meeting prior to May 31st so that you have the hours for the calendar to be submitted to the State Department. Is that correct, Dr. Russell? You have to have your minimum hours included in your calendar when you submit it to the State Department by May 31st. So will the board need to have a special meeting to select start and end time so that they can approve a calendar with the required hours?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, Clerk Lamont. Right now, we're approving the days. We have given the hours, but it's not part of the approval. Again, if the board would like to approve that, then we could have it. If we need to get it in, we can get it in. Based on what we're proposing right now, we'll easily meet our hours, and that's what we need to do.
So just for clarification, so if we shift the school day 5 minutes this way or 5 minutes that way, it won't affect the total number of hours. But if we are still trying to decide what the day window should look like for elementary, for example, we don't have the number of hours, correct? So that we would have to either say, yes, this length of day is what we're going with for contact hours. And then we can approve this calendar so that we can submit it without another meeting, or we can just approve the days and then meet again so that we have the correct number of hours. Yes? Is that what you're saying?
Seeking clarification.
I think that
Chair
we're
Taylor
seeking
and Trustee Benz, I
clarification
believe
really
that's
quickly.
what Clerk Lamont is
Yeah,
saying.
so I think we're trying to seek clarification if it's an hours approval or a days approval.
The concern I would have is if we can adjust it, we'd have to come back and change the start and end times a second time. So we could do that. My hope was to do similar to what Trustee Kirkman had mentioned, is get the calendar days set. And then I guess if we do have to have hours in by the 31st, if that's the code, then we probably would have to have a special meeting.
Well, we have to have a special meeting
But
anyway.
I
We
would
don't,
like to see our bus contract at least finalized.
yeah,
And I
so
would-
the days.
I
yeah.
would prefer one start end time instead of doing it now and then having to change it, but
Okay.
state code may require us to do that. And we may not be able to change it either. So that is something that is very possible, that our bus contract comes in and that is the time that they give us, that we might have to do that.
Well, can we approve the number of hours based on the start and end times? And then if the start and end times shift, do they just have to shift together so we have the same number of hours?
Are you talking about right now?
Yeah,
Just
the days.
I think we just
Okay.
act on the
days. Okay,
calendar. Let the parents start scheduling for next year, and then
sounds good.
we'll address the timeframes.
Chair Taylor, Mr. Stoffer, I believe, has some maybe insights to help us in this situation here. So maybe he has some guidance.
Trustee Taylor, Board of Trustees, I don't know if it's good information, but I'll give you some information with the busing contract. By Idaho code, we have to leave it open for 4 weeks or 28 days. So currently it was posted this week, and I'll do some updates on that in the facilities, but I just wanted to make you aware that we won't know busing until mid-June, at earliest, until mid-June.
Which is right around our next
So,
Correct.
board meeting anyways.
Mr. Doctor, to Trustee Benz's question, if we approve an 8.75 hour day, does it matter which way it shifts?
Right.
If we save 30 minutes here, save 30 minutes there. Is that correct?
That was what I was asking. Yeah.
It could, but depending on the bus contract though.
Mr. Yarba, please.
For clarity on that, it wouldn't be an 8.75. That would still be a negotiation for teacher contract time. It would be an 8.1 hour day for secondary students
contact.
and a 7.5 hour day
Sorry,
for
I just threw a
elementary.
random number out there.
Yep, just making sure. I
I'm
wanted to
sorry,
be on the same page.
8.1 hour for secondary.
If the same time, the start and end time that's proposed is there, and then again, it could be whatever the board decides on that 0.1 hours. We take a minute per period out, whatever that looks like. So it would be 8.1, and then I believe it's 7.5 for elementary.
Chair Taylor.
Yeah.
So I noticed on the slide here that's showing the proposed, it's the one that actually has the proposed start time so far. There's an option for a 154-day schedule. But if we vote and approve this current calendar that's presented, that's not an option as far as potentially shrinking the day hours to possibly get kids out one way or another.
Correct.
Sounds like these are all the 4 scenarios that they've offered, and what they're recommending is the 150 days, the third option that they've highlighted.
Yeah. And so I guess if we have to, the deadline for submitting our calendar, Kirk Lamont, is the 1st of June. So the 31st, May 31st.
They have to be submitted by May 31st.
And if the busing, we won't know one way or the other until after that date. It makes sense to me that we say, this is the length of day, it doesn't matter when it starts or ends, as long as it's this long. And that way we have the hours, and then we can figure out what the start and end times will be once we know the buses, but at least we'll be able to have the hours to submit along with the calendar.
Chair Taylor, Clerk Lamont, I'm going to put you in a position, but if the numbers don't get to the State Department by May 31st, what are the ramifications?
I don't know.
They withhold funding?
No, I do know your calendars are due. I don't know about what the consequences are.
Okay.
I could email them and ask and then report back, but I won't be able to get an answer this evening.
I would assume that the State Department would like to have all those numbers in because they have deadlines and timelines and things that they're working on too. I get that, but I think we're in a special situation here in Nampa, and if we can get them as close as we can,
Yeah.
but.
And if we submit the calendar without the hours, I guess the same question, is there any consequence to that? We'll say we'll get back to you with the hours later.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought you were saying, well, let's just not do the.
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, they need them. I just, we need to do what's best for the department, for the district. That's what I'm saying. And then if we don't have those times yet, and if we need to wait a little bit for the bus contract and all that other kind of stuff to fall into place, then I say we wait. We approve, we look at this calendar tonight, make a decision, and then get the times when it comes with the bus thing and everything else, and get them to the state as fast as we can.
So, just because I think that Trustee Jennings and I kind of have the same sticking point, anybody who has the answer to this question can answer it for me. If we hit the 154 days and we shorten the day, it didn't leave us enough time in secondary to do our correct busing, correct? Everybody's shaking their head. Yes, I just needed that refresher. That's why I think that I'd be good with the days at the 150 days. So my issue is length of day as well. And I love the emails that we get. Like, I'm very much for, I really want to start elementary earlier and secondary later. You have no idea, but I keep having the same conversation with both Dr. Russell and Waylon every few days. Like every few days I call and we have the same conversation and they walk me off the ledge. But
Full page of math right here.
correct, yes. So I will say that I think in either of those scenarios, to fulfill that busing, that CTE, that you and I are both looking at 150 days. So I don't think that we're boxing ourselves into a corner. If your issue is the same as mine, I think with that 150-day approval, because I do think we've received enough emails from parents that at least tell us when we're going to start and when we're going to end. And so I think that 150 days, regardless of how you slice it, is what we have to do at this point for that secondary piece to fit that CTE. Is that really a yes? Was that a good summation? Did I understand correctly on that? Sorry, I just don't want to speak out of turn, but I've just asked this question so much because I'm obviously obsessed. So like I keep saying that was correct, right?
Chair Taylor, that is a good summation. The thing we have to understand is there are multi-variables going on.
Right.
You can do just about anything. You could shorten the day and extend the calendar. You could lengthen the day and shorten the calendar. Like there are multiple variables at play. And the crux of the issue comes down to CTE class time in the period and what that shuttling means. And so all of those proposed models there, I think we went down to a 68-minute period all the way up to a 73-minute period of what that looks like, and then all the permutations of that. And again, that's in 150-day model is what that's been figured on. You could move to a 147-day model, but again, then we need to look at the total time in class and what that has impacted in all of those variables. Again, they all play together.
Yep. And that was the perfect one to keep our CTE moving and checking those boxes. And then the proposed elementary start time for that would be the 8:51 and that 4:21. Yeah. So that just is what doesn't change. But I'm very much for the flipping of the two. Yeah. I think that we are on the exact same page with that one.
So are we approving, is the potential motion to approve a calendar or to approve a calendar and the times?
No,
Well,
just the calendar.
Just the calendar. So yeah, just the time, just the calendar, to approve the calendar, which we've never had to approve the two separately. So my assumption would be we have enough time between now and the end of the month. We have to have a special meeting anyway, guys, because we have to do.
Chair Taylor, I mean, the conversation I'm hearing is to approve the calendar days.
Yeah.
Not the calendar, but the
Calendar days. Yeah. And I want to see what's been asked. Sorry, I was going to look at the memo.
Yeah. And
I
so-
move that the board approve the
Just
Nampa
the
School District
calendar.
24 district calendar, parent student calendar for the 2024-2025 school year. You're just approving the days, I would assume, with that emotion, with that motion.
I don't believe that's what that motion is. I think this one is because they included proposed times. So this says for the calendar. So I believe, and maybe seeking out clarification from Dr. Russell, was the intent of the motion to approve all of it, including the proposed days, or just, the proposed times, or just the days?
Chair Taylor and Clerk Lamont, the proposal was to approve the days and the 50 in the first semester, 50 student days, 52nd semester, 53rd semester, the start of school, those things. We weren't asking to approve the start time of school and the end day of school, like the specific day, just because, again, the bus situation, and wanted to see if we could try to make that work. We have heard those concerns and understand that getting out at 4:21 is not the preferred time. And would love to see if we can work that through the bus company, whatever that comes. And again, it may not happen. That may be where we end up landing. And happy to call the state and talk to them about what are the ramifications if we don't have it in. I think they may understand that situation. I know some people over there. I can give them a
Maybe I'll
call
get an
and-
email.
Yeah,
And
Maybe I'll get an email.
if it
Yeah.
is something detrimental,
But in years past, guys, I don't ever remember this being an issue. So we've never had to convolute start times with this. I just do not think that we're doing anything here. And then a yes vote brings that back. So something I learned early on, a yes vote allows us to bring something back to the table if necessary. So I think we have plenty of time if we should decide to approve and something needs change. We would have plenty of time to rectify. I don't think we're going to get to that point.
Well, let me throw a motion out on the table, and then if there's any discussion, you can. So I'm going to move that the board approve the Nampa School District 2024-25 district calendar, parent student calendar for the 24-25 school year. I don't know who wrote that sentence, but I think it's all in there.
Chair
I
Taylor,
think it's all in there.
that would be me. Get this worded.
Sorry about that.
Glad that you let him know.
Felt like I
I'm
was
glad you
repeating
read that out loud.
I second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. I think we are good.
Sorry, Dr. Russell, I didn't mean to throw you out there in front of.
Well, reading in your head and reading out loud, it sounds different. So definitely could use some wordsmithing, or should have used some AI or something.
All right. Appreciated you guys. That is going to move us through the action portion of our meeting tonight. We are now going to go ahead and move into information items and reports. We will start with a facilities update. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, trustees, Mr. Stauffer is here to share some updates around our facilities and some of the construction we have going on in the district.
Trustee Taylor, Board of Trustees. We have a lot going on. We're actually starting to see things start moving. Just a quick update. You do have the link in your docket which is regarding our field turf, tennis courts, and track improvements that are ongoing. You probably noticed that Skyviews is getting really close. Within about 2 weeks of starting to put down and having the turf finalized on Skyview. Nampa has started the excavation process. So we do have that timeline built in there for you to be able to see. And I think I mentioned this last time, we're updating that every Thursday for the community and for the board as well. Subsequently, we'll have another one that will look very similar to this with the renovation of West and with Snake River. Current renovation plans for West are underway. We have our permits back. We are targeting start date again with the 3rd of June. All of the supplies since our last meeting have been ordered, and so we're well within our way with the West project. An update on the Snake River project is we have submitted our requests and permits for the city. This one is going to take a little bit longer just because of the scope and sequence of the safety measures that we need to upgrade Snake River with. There is some hesitation on both our part and in conjunction with our construction management team at Benetton to wait until the permits have been fully executed and provided and all the documentation that they're requesting before we push out for bid. We want to make sure we have everything in line. So it is going to take us a little bit longer on this one. We really rushed the West, and it was more of a traditional remodel. So we were comfortable and confident, and everything came through well with that permitting process. But with Snake River, we are looking at most likely a 45 to 60 day before we get the permits back, before we can gather the information and do any updates that are necessary for permitting before we put it out for bid. When we put this one out for bid, we want to make sure that it is more in line due to its uniqueness comparative to other buildings. That does push us back a little bit, not from what I proposed before, but we're looking at completion date the 1st of December. We did talk about moving in over the winter break before second semester. So everything is still online and on schedule, but I just wanted to update the board with where we were at the permitting and why we are waiting to do the actual bidding process until we have the permits in hand.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Stuffer. Trustee Sue?
Mr. Stuffer, are you concerned about the ability to get trades in, knowing that Micron and Meta and all these people are massive projects? Is there a concern there that if we push it back, it's going to interrupt it?
Trustee Taylor, Chair Taylor, Trustee Sue, that we have seen some impacts on that. Particularly, we're seeing it in the electrical component. But in talking to our construction management team today, looking at the schedule for many of the subcontractors right now are not built out. There's more flexibility right now for the late fall build out. I do think if we're a year from now with Meta and with Micron, we will be in a different situation. The consuming of those trades are going to start coming on towards the beginning of next year, from what I understand. They're still doing a lot of the base work right now on those facilities. So when we start seeing the walls go up, I do think that's when we're going to have some other components that we might have to be concerned about a year from now. But right now, we're still in a good place. We feel that there was a good response to our West package. In talking to Bennington today, they feel very comfortable with the amount and even predict that we'll have more subs bidding in this packet than we did in the West packet.
Thank you.
That was a long answer, but I did go over that. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Stuffer regarding the facilities update? And I just want to remind everybody that this is where we're putting all that information as we move through all the construction next year. So this should be something common that you should expect to see all the way through to next year.
Correct.
All right.
Trustee Taylor, I did have one more to add, and I think this is the time that we discussed to talk about the busing contract. I just wanted to update you where we were on that piece as well, since it fits underneath
So
facilities.
I have the
You have it in the super-
I have
okay,
that in the
perfect.
superintendent's report.
I'll be back.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. But I actually have that physically there. So now we are going to move into the enrollment average daily attendance. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, Trustees, just your monthly report on our enrollment average daily attendance. Happy to answer any questions if you have.
Trustees, again, we see this just based on funding and for our reference. Are there any questions here for Dr. Russell? Okay. If there are no questions, then we will go ahead and move on to the budget policy review. This is done annually. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, Trustees, Mr. Dewey's up here tonight to share some information about a possible change to our budget policy that we would look forward to bringing in June, but wanted to share some information about why that might be needed.
Chair Taylor, prior to that, and that policy was not included with those changes because it was past the deadline for information for the board packet.
The policy 7215, is that
The changes that were sent, it was after the board packet deadline, so I discussed with the chair ahead of time that would be on the
June meeting. Yeah, that's fine. That's why it's there.
Other than that, all it really is, honestly, it's a audit related thing, where they've changed some accounting standards where we used to be able to individually, anything over $5,000, we would capitalize. Anything under that, we wouldn't. Now they've kind of gone through and said, if you've bought a whole bunch of things, even though they're under $5,000 or whatever your capitalization threshold is, then you need to start capitalizing those. And you have to go backwards and see exactly what you did on those type of things, like our purchase of chairs and all that stuff that we did last year, the year before. So we found a couple wiggle rooms with our auditors. One thing we're going to do because of inflation anyway, we just needed to raise our capitalization threshold to 25,000, which basically we've had the same thing for probably 20 years. That was in it. The 5,000 is that. And then there's another caveat in there that basically says if the entire purchase isn't over 1% of your revenues, then it's still immaterial in the records of the gap. It's all financial statement related, has nothing to do with what we really do, budget related, but it's just something that needs to be done and I have to get you guys to approve it.
Okay.
So June's fine.
Okay, and so Mr. Dewey, just so I totally understand, is this going to be a change to all three policies referenced?
This is, I'm not sure where the budget policy, these policies were, I think, things that you guys got to look at regularly. It has nothing to do with budget, honestly.
Okay, got it.
Their annual review.
So
Yeah.
these are the annual reviews, but the policy that you're wanting to make
not-
that change to is not loaded. Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that I
I
understood.
was not aware that it wasn't in there, but that's okay.
Okay, got
We can
it.
wait till
Okay,
June.
got it. And it was because there was a time frame, and so, yeah.
Okay, that's not, no.
Now it makes sense. I needed to put them
Yeah,
together
I
as well.
I was confused as well.
Okay,
thought it
but
was-
now
I thought it
now
was
I'm
in there
with
as
you.
well. This first I'd heard.
Okay, got it.
Earlier
So,
today.
so
was that it wasn't in there.
7215, 7305, and 7500.
These are just normal ones. You just
And
need to
then
look
next month, you're going to bring us a policy that you want some change around, which is actually good to know that we'll see that in June.
Yep.
Okay, so 7215, 7305, and 7500, these need to be annually reviewed. So are we going to do that here now as well?
As long as you read your packet, you reviewed them. There's no motion.
There's no nothing. So that's my question.
Yeah,
So if
no-
these were
nothing
read,
changes. It's just if you
Box
guys see
checked.
anything you need, then go from there.
so this is great.
I try to make it
Okay.
easy.
Okay, got that. So that's done. So now we're on the budget update, which is the budget hearing is set on June 18th.
Yes, and then we actually have a presentation for you on that. So is that the time that I'm doing right now? Or am I, yes.
So
My
are we
normal.
doing that presentation right now?
No, not the budget hearing presentation, just my financial, my regular monthly one, which has some things associated with this year and next year budget.
So then I think that's the finance treasurer report. Is that correct? Because I have 3 bullets here for
Yeah, I
you.
saw that as well. So
Okay.
I don't think this one, I believe the one you're under right now is saying that the budget hearing is actually June 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, the presentation I also emailed you today because I just received it today
Yeah,
and I
I
wrote it
thought
in
I
the
said
board
that
packet.
earlier.
Okay, and that's okay too. So that budget update, you emailed that to us. So really quick, before I move on to E, because I feel like C was completed, because we just had to say that we acknowledged and looked at those. There was no motion. Budget update, you're saying was emailed over.
No, budget update is
Just a
entirely about the budget
That's
hearing.
it. Okay, so
That's
then
it.
that's where
And
I'm
then the
trying
other
to get.
one's
So
the
we're on
finance
E.
report presentation that I'm giving.
And then that I do have that loaded. So did you email it and then also load it into the packet? Okay, so that's loaded. Okay, so now we're on E, your report.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
I was trying to get, I was
it's
really
okay.
I was trying to land the plane.
She
You
was
did.
much smarter at it than I was. I
was
looked at
not.
it earlier. It's like, I
took
don't
me a
know half
second
these.
to realize where we were going. I'm sorry.
I was the same way when I looked at
I'm
it.
sorry, guys.
It's not a big deal at all. We're pretty flexible.
Okay.
Tyler will bring up my presentation here in a second.
Tyler's gonna say, what presentation?
Yeah, what presentation. Well, he's the one who reminded me that I never sent it to him. So I just sent it to Dr. Russell earlier this weekend, and I apologize not to send it to you guys. Ultimately, if you go to the next one here, the one thing I want to make sure we're understanding, and Dr. Russell's going to talk about it earlier, is that we were ready for all this, guys. We've been ready for years. And so it's not like we're in financial distress or anything, but the issue is our state has decided to underfund us again, unfortunately, and we were using ESSER funds to keep us going. And unfortunately, when things didn't change like we thought they would, now we have to make the hard decisions, which is what we've been doing for the last year and a half. So we are not in any crazy. We did, like I said, our current budget was 630 units. And our actual ended up being at 623.58. That was a protected unit. Remember, that was a whole thing about everybody gets to pitch in on that. And so ultimately the difference is about $1.4 million less in revenue than we are hoping through in budget. We are going to get one-time supplemental payment. We believe it's approximately about $4 million. It's based on our best 28 weeks, which doesn't come out until July, which is great. I think I kind of have a good idea of where it is, and it's going to be about $4.1 million. So I'm going to go to the next one. All right. So ultimately, some other great things is we got a little bit more money in transportation than we were expecting. A lot of it wasn't because of what we did. There's a huge component on transportation that has to do with what's called a block grant. And that block grant is all about growth and reduction of size across these districts. In years past, where West Ada is growing gangbusters, they got a huge chunk of the block grant. So with this block grant made it so they actually got about 90% reimbursement when we always get about 75. West Ada now is no longer growing at that same rate. As a result, we were able to get a regular 75 and they got 70. So at that point in time, when you're as big as West Ada is, it influences everything else. So we got a little bit more money as a result, which is nice. Our investment earnings, like I said, has really done well. We're getting to the levels that we used to have back before the recessions and all that stuff and COVID, when interest rates were like at zero forever. Personally, I wish the interest rates were still low for other reasons. But for this reason, it's actually pretty good for us. So it's actually doing pretty well. We do have one that's a state broadband. And it looks like when you guys look at the numbers later on, it looks like that we're really low. And reality, what's happened is because we redid our contract, our broadband is significantly lower. Our cost is lower and our revenue is also lower as a result. So we're not looking at a net difference on that. So it's nice. If you go to the next one. All right, let's talk expenditures. Again, salary benefits. This is why I'm not worried because remember, we're about $1.5 million under budget with our salaries as well. So we're about $1.4 million under revenue. And then we also have $1.5 million of budget remaining. So it works itself out. So it nets to what, $100,000 to the good. And really all it is honestly is we pay so much more for more experienced teachers over and above what we get for the career ladder. So when experienced teachers leave and we hire and replace them with less experienced teachers, we're closer to our money that we get with the state. And so it helps us more budget wise than anything else. So that did help us this year. Hopefully we don't lose a lot of experienced teachers. That's not what I'm hoping for. It's just the nature of what happens when people retire. Other expenses, we still have gas, power, sewer, all that stuff. Things got really hot real quick. So hopefully AC's turned on and our power bill gets pretty high when the AC goes. But so hopefully we won't have too much more there that'll bump us too high. Our sub costs are over a little bit. So it is what it is on that one, but we're good there. Transportation's on budget to what we'd anticipated. And we do have the potential, some ESSER expenditures that we had planned on spending didn't get spent or came in a little low. So we do have the potential of moving some expenses back over to the ESSER to clear those out, which will help us on the revenue side as well.
Sorry, Randy.
Yep.
The transportation on budget, you're talking about busing up until the end of the current contract.
Correct. Yeah, the new one, that's what he gets to talk about later, and I don't really, that one's not a fun one. And any savings, our plan is any savings that we can use. We're really hoping for our shortfall when we talk into our next couple slides, we'll talk about some of those things. All right, so remember we had ESSER this last year of ESSER, technically goes to 930. But we're using it all up this year. There'll be a little bit next year for some of the ARP stuff that our federal programs gets. But other than that, the main stuff that we have at districts all going to be gone this year. So that's $15 million that we've had pretty much the last 3 years in a row that we no longer are going to have. That's a pretty big hit for us. And we knew all those positions were going. There were one-time positions, but there was a lot of things that stuff helped with. And it also got us accustomed to some things that now we're trying to fit back in the budget, which we can't do everything. Remember what we have accomplished this year. We've closed 4 schools. We reboundaried all schools, new high school schedule, 4-day school week, and reduction of a lot of positions at a lot of levels. So we were ready for this, guys. So it wasn't something that we are some of the other districts in the area that basically are freaking out. Oh my God, last minute meetings. This is not back 10 years ago when I came in and, we had to shut off lights and not mow the lawn for a week. So we were ready for it. It just hurts regardless when you have to get rid of as many positions as we had. We were so hoping that new funding formula would come through. Didn't even make the floor, which was more disappointing than anything. And we're still probably going to lose $100 million next year in total funding that is going to just be lost, in my opinion, which unfortunately, even though we voted as a state to increase funding for $300 million, apparently that decision has been made for us. Yeah,
Right
so
there.
we're gonna go to the next one. I'm trying to be really politically right here, guys, so I apologize, but it does hurt.
All right.
I mean, we have these, if we would have had our regular funding like we should have, a lot of the stuff we could have taken time with. We wouldn't have had to make as many cuts in a row, and we could have really done a lot better job at getting through it a little easier.
Well, and I think we totally understand where you're coming from, because I was just thinking about that one-time payment from the state of $4 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one time.
Yep.
So, I mean,
and realistically, it should be in our budget
exactly,
every year.
it's
Yeah, that's how much
difficult to
they've taken
budget
for us.
year to, you know, on
Yep.
whether or not that might be there. It's hard to budget on what might be there.
Yeah.
So
It was
yeah, we
$160
totally
million.
understand where you're coming from.
$160 million this year that they basically ended up not giving us this year because the move back to ADA funding. And that now is lost by not going to enrollment based again. And so it hurt the whole system, and it's hurting some longer than ours, but we're making it through it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to next year. So when we talked about what we got, 623 units, remember that was a protected unit stuff. So we actually, when we look at how much we actually got, it was 607 units is what we ended up with at the end of the year. So we have to now go down from 623 to 604 was what we were expecting, because we know we have a little bit of decline in enrollment still. Even with some of the open enrollment, we're kind of hoping that gets it back, but we're not sure what that will. So, I mean, so not only did we lose all of or we spent the last of our ESSER funds and funding is going down, we also needed to make up another 23 units or 20 units or so of funding for us. So yeah, it's been a fun year in trying to get this thing balanced. We do have career ladder increase. That's good. So they at least funded that based on the law. And then we have 3% increase in base administrators. That money is going to help us give everybody like their normal step raise. We don't anticipate a base raise on any of our classified or administrators. They did give us an operational increase, but unfortunately, when you're only talking 600 units, you do the math, it's not huge. That health insurance amount didn't matter to us as much, because what happened now since we went to the state plan is that our cost now went from $13,750 this year down to $13,000 next year. So the state plan is now the what do you call it? The driver of how insurance costs go for the entire state and how much they give us. So we could be like in other districts that didn't go to the state plan and got an increase this year like everybody else, and then they got a decrease in funding as well. But because ours is in line with that, it goes up, we get more money, it goes down, we get less money. You know what I'm saying? But it just nets to hopefully zero in the end. So that's good for us. And then most other funding, like I said, anticipating ADA, teacher counts and all that kind of stuff. We're making it through it. And a lot of our funding is going to go down because we have a little bit less, but if things go right, and like I think they will, I think we're going to be leveling off here soon. Hopefully not too bad. 4-day work school week, I think, is going to help financially in that world, getting some new students in. We'll still, if you want to go to the next one, a little bit different. So our state apportionment salaries, we're only down $300,000, but you think about what we went down in units, and then we got additional money. So in the end, the net's only about $300,000 down, but we still have some negotiation and all that stuff to do. Operational, it went up a little bit, and other estimated approximately the same as current year. So it looks weird because we're comparing 604 units to 623, but we do have to make those differences up in different areas in some of our financial line items. You want to go to the next one? And anticipated expense increases. The state gave us money to give to the teachers, and we're going to flow that through. That's not something we've looked at differently in order to be competitive. That is what we do. They did do a per se increase this year. It cost everything, and we believe that's going to cost about $450,000.
Sorry, Randy, I don't mean to interrupt you again.
You're
but
right.
The comment you just made about the money coming through the teachers, but that's based on the contract negotiations, correct?
It's about contract negotiation,
Okay.
but what we do is whatever the state provides us, that's basically the pool that we've given.
But
That's
that's
what
still
we've done.
part of contract
It's
negotiations.
still part of
All right, I just
negotiations.
want to make
yeah.
that very clear because
It's not
I think-
it's not a done deal. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate thing is I have to get the budget done, so I have to anticipate money in
So
there.
you're working on a different timeline, maybe.
Well,
which
I was
is
hoping that
understandable.
timeline would speed up, but it never does.
But I just
So
want to make that
not
clear
anybody's
for
fault. It's
somebody
just
who
what
might
it
be
is.
listening and just heard that comment.
Yeah,
and
we're
thinking
trying to-
they're automatically going to push this money all the way to the teachers. That has to come
Yeah,
out through. Some
we're
negotiation.
working through that
Okay.
process. Yes, I meet with them on Thursday actually. So We do have about $200,000 in software increases. We know 2 or 3% when you're talking $1 million, $200 million, it gets up there pretty quick. So obviously, the busing contract. So that's what we're working on right now, getting creative with that as well. Liability insurance. This one's the one that hurt me that I wasn't expecting. Basically, we're on a pooled system with the state. Our main company is ICRIMP, and most of anybody that knows ICRIMP, they are a state, county, city organization. It's a government agency that does insurance. So we're kind of a self-insured plan within that. The unfortunate part, we thought by adjusting our deductibles that we might be able to bring our increase down. That unfortunately isn't going to matter one bit because the fund in total is under reserve. They had too many claims. As you guys all know, like Highland High School's gym burned down last year. So that's hitting all the claims. And then up north, there was actually a lot of problems with some freezing things that happened up north with cities and counties. So we're on like the entire pool. It's not just us. So they are now needing to get their fund balance back up to, the reserve balance up to what it needs to be. And so everybody is hurting in that. Cities, counties, us as well. And we're going to look into it. Our broker said they're going to look into it as well. We have actually proven out that out of the school side of this, we've paid in $6 million less than what they actually have paid out in claims. And that doesn't even include the Highland High School gym of $31 million that's going to go out here soon. So
Isn't that how insurance typically operates?
yeah, well, and that's reinsurance, and even that thing's gone up, and so everything's just hitting us at once. Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, we do get some tort money from it, but with the caps that they provided us, the legislature put in a few years ago, I can't actually increase the tort money enough to actually cover this, which is a big bummer. So in the past, we could have, and it would have been a net zero, not that big a deal. The other issue we'd already talked about in the 4-day coverage for nutrition services. Right now, we're thinking about $200,000. They're trying to mitigate that as much as possible, redo some schedules and that. And so we're working through that. And we're still looking at about 1.1 million, and where I'm not balanced just yet. We're still looking at that. If you guys remember back when we first started this process, we had anticipated about $1 million that we weren't going to be able to make up yet. So we were looking for savings this year, some fund balance that we had to be able to do that. We're still kind of looking in that range, but every day the hardest part that I'm having right now is trying to figure out where all the people are that were in our normal budget and trying to move them out of the budget. And so I think I still have some areas that are too high, and I got some areas too low. And when you're talking a $100 million general fund budget, it doesn't take long to get off a couple $100,000 here and there. So still working through that. By the time we meet next time, obviously it'll be done. The publication goes out on the 4th. So we'll have that all ready to go for you guys by then.
Okay.
I think that's the last one, right? Oh, no. Carry forward. All right. So we have the two different carry forwards. The one from this year that we're trying to suck as much as we can and put that in to be able to help for that 1.1 million that we were not balanced just yet. We do have the $4 billion as well. And our plan was to take 2 million each year, this year and next year. And the reason for that is because we still have things that were on ESSER that we really felt were important. The first one is the VPs and the deans at the elementary level. I think that has proven to be a good concept for most of us, especially when we're getting the schools bigger. That's going to help out tremendously. The secondary FDE is all about changing the schedule. Sometimes you just couldn't get rid of anybody. We didn't want to riff. And if you had one too many social studies teachers, we can only let go of so many Cat 1, Cat 2s, and you get to the experienced teachers, and that's where we are. So we don't have a lot, but we do have some. We have looked into our middle school counselors a little bit more. With the increase in middle schools, we're trying to move that around and trying to upgrade that a little bit to give them a little bit more proportional to high school and counselor needs. And then we all getting some additional para support for EL. So I think we ended up with 3 of those as well. So our goal is to keep it around $2 million. Next year, it should be a little less, at least for the secondary, because we can kind of let go a little bit more. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what's important. And if it's really important, we have to figure out where else we can make cuts to get some of these things in there. So that's kind of the hope. Gives us 2 years to make that decision. And I think that is the last one, right?
Will any of the
Got one more.
Sorry,
You're all right.
Taylor. Any of the carryover funds be used for the new position at the district level for the athletic director?
No, so that we're right now currently using levy funds from that, and any additional money we get from doing selling of our turf, selling of any kind of sponsorships will end up paying for that position. So at this point in time, nothing's coming out of the carry forward funds or from the general funds. We're trying to make up that position. We have some people's fillers out, and we think we've got a couple of these fields sold, but we don't have anything sold.
Okay.
That's-
Thank you. I
that's
appreciate
Courtney's
that because
department.
that's been some questions that have come up.
Yeah, and we understand that as well. You
Yeah.
know, why increase when we're trying to get rid of other positions? But there are other reasons for that other than just money, and we'll kind of leave it at that. I think, and future decisions, like I said, we're gonna have the budget hearing on the 18th. We'll get it in the paper, and if you guys decide not to budget it, hear it, and approve it in the same day, we'll just have to, within 14 days, you just have to have a special meeting and get it approved. So we've done it multiple different ways. It's not that big a deal. So, and you know, so it's pretty easy on my part either way.
Okay.
And that's it.
Now, are you sure?
I hope so. I hope so. Thanks.
I think Tyler's got one more
Trustees,
slide.
are there additional,
I don't even know how it's like.
are there additional questions for Mr. Dewey, or am I free to move on to the superintendent report? Okay.
I do have a question that,
Please.
so we have the budget that is due in the paper beginning of June, early June, before the budget hearing. But we also have the proposed change in policy. I'm assuming, does that change in policy affect the way that the budget's going to appear in that?
It actually has nothing to do with any, they're
Okay.
two mutually, one's for the
Okay.
audit
Okay.
and the other one's strictly for budget. So,
Okay, I just wasn't sure if we needed to.
no.
Understood.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Russell, we're now at the superintendent report.
Chair Taylor, trustees, for the superintendent report, we'll start with a busing update. Mr. Stoffer can come and share with us. We have let you know, and it's that we did see a substantial increase proposal from our current bus vendor, over 21%-ish in that range, several million over what we have budgeted, and therefore it has required the district to go out for a request for bid. And Mr. Stoffer here tonight is to share an update on that.
Chair Taylor, Board of Trustees, just wanted to inform you that we did get the bid posted. We just got it posted. We also had the state reviewed our RFP and approved it. We also had legal also did the same. So they've been through all the channels. We got it out. I am very grateful for a lot of hands that were put into that to help out. That was a massive process. We had some help from our neighbors in West Ada that also helped us through that process. But it is out. We do have, at least today when I checked, we had 5 companies that had picked it up and looked through all the documentation and downloaded it. I don't know what that means, but we did. The 3 that we expected were there, and there was 2 additional ones that were new to the picking out of all of our documents. That's due to us. We broadcasted nationally as well through our e-procurement services at DemandStar. So we do have a timeline for that. This week, I'll be having a meeting with any of those interested in potentially bidding on it. We will be meeting, going over questions. After that, we do have the 28 days before the bids will be submitted. So that's June 10th is when we'll receive all the bids. After that, we'll need to quickly do our tabulations and look at the most cost-effective option. Again, by Idaho code, we have to select the bid that is complete with the lowest pricing by Idaho code. There are some at times we can look at different qualifiers, but this is not one of those. We do have to go off of the lowest bid. But we'll have that prepared shortly after the 10th. I'll pull an all-nighter if need be, so you can have it as soon as possible. But once we get through that, there will be some decisions that the board will need to make. Part of the process, as we've discussed, there are some things that we are looking at taking in-house with this bid. Part of the discussions that we've had some difficulties with over the years is our ability to route and control the routing and get routes adjusted to meet our needs. Part of the issue that we do believe that has put us in the position of being so over our budget was the routing component has not really been evaluated or adjusted for many years. So that's one component that we have looked at and will be needed as far as some future discussion. Also with that, we have some software that we have been using to track and use for the transportation systems. Actually going to be starting to get some training on that next week. So I'll be working on building as much as I can in the back side of this contract and getting our routes put together, hopefully for the time when we do pick a bus company that we're able to start handing over things and working together to get things ready for August. It is a crunch time for sure. This is going to consume a lot of time, but we will make it happen.
Question, Courtney, or Mr. Stopper, the software you were talking about, that is basically routing the bus routes. I mean, the bus route software. You plug all the information when it spits out what. So is that not in the RFP that was just sent out? Is that very specific? Like we don't need a company to bid on because we've decided to take this in-house?
Chair Taylor and Trustee Kirkman, yes. The answer to that is yes. We were very specific in that component for the RFP that went out.
So no matter what, we're going to be doing the in-house bus routing.
Correct.
So getting that software now and getting up to speed on it is
paramount.
Yep.
Another component to that, Trustee Kirkman, is those costs. The way that we had structured before, we really were reimbursed off of just the contract. There are other opportunities for reimbursement that we have not taken advantage of because of how our contract was structured previously. With the model of taking it underneath our own umbrella, we do get reimbursed on a significant component of that software, which previously was wrapped up into the contract. Also with that, and looking at opportunities for us to bring that in-house and some personnel that we will need to accomplish that task, there's also a reimbursement factor that comes into play that we haven't accessed before because of how we structured. Again, the contract has changed a little bit, so it does afford us the opportunity, and there is some potential cost savings in that. And we have some documents that we've shared with you about that as well. But it is going to need for us to look at bringing on some staff to house some of the transportation component. As much as I would love to, I cannot manage that and the other components that I have on my plate. I would not be able to be the bus director as well.
But might be the bus driver too.
I might be the bus driver. We all might be the bus driver here a
I
little
love
bit.
that you have let us know that you are not up for position of bus director. I appreciate you letting the whole team know now.
But even then, if that's the case, the offset would be the reimbursement for.
Correct. So again, we are taking advantages of opportunities that have been there, but how we have structured things for the last 20 years has not been on that model. We have been learning from our neighbors who have gone down this route as well, and they have seen some opportunities and some cost savings and some performance opportunities due to the way that they've structured their contract. And so we've watched those very carefully. And those are what we have utilized to go after this RFP.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because I think it's important again for the public, those who watch or might be interested down the road, why we're having this conversation about maybe the possibility of another position to handle that. So I appreciate that clarification, not clarification, explanation.
Sure.
Does the software, I know we've had some concerns even with those snow days. Is there bus tracking software for the students when they're on the bus as well?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Jennings, I'm excited to say yes, and much more robust configuration of GPS tracking for parents, a better reporting system with the geofencing. All of these have better tools. We believe they're better tools than what we've been exposed to recently. And again, these are based off of other districts' utilization of it. It's not a new software. We're not piloting something that hasn't been used before. It has been true, tried and tested, and the parent component is much more robust. Included in this, and I maybe venture a little bit down this, is we will also have a system to be able to track our students who are actually on each bus. The students will card in, and they'll be identified, or a bus driver will identify and punch them into a tablet, which will then identify to parents that your child is on the bus. And
in
so,
real time then.
in real time. So we will have some added features that we have not had before through this system. And again, a much more robust reporting system for when my student might be getting to their stop, when my student was picked up, when my student was dropped off. We'll have a much better reporting system for that.
tangential question then. Are elementary students going to have ID cards then to scan?
Trustee, Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, yes, that is the idea that, again, that we would have some, it can be done two ways. They would have an RFID card on their backpacks, or the bus driver themselves can pull up and just mark them on the tablet as they enter too. So there's a different interfaces, but yes, the easy one is the swipe in as they get in. But if they don't have that, there's a system around that as well.
And
Okay, trustees, any other questions?
Yeah, speaking of that specifically, what is the security component? How do we keep kids safe from stalkers, estranged parents, things like that? How does that work? Or do you know yet the details of that?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Sue, explain a little bit more. I'm not sure if I understand your question completely.
So at this point, with this new software, I know that a kid is on the bus and they've checked in.
Mhm.
How does the school district protect them from, how does that software work so it doesn't, people who don't need to know, don't know that how many kids are on the bus?
That kid is on the
Safety.
bus.
Yeah, he just
But
wants to make sure that only the right people know
Yeah.
the kids on the bus and not stalkers.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Sue, I think I understand your question right now. So there's a cross reference where we have the parents' information. So it talks to our student information system. And so only the guardians are going to be able to get that information. Now, what we can't stop is if the guardian shares the information with somebody else, but they will only go to the guardians of that student who have been identified in our Power School system. And those are the only ones that will have access to it. So there's going to be a symbiotic relationship between our student information system and the busing transportation system, which we have in many of our other systems as well.
Chair Taylor, Trustees, just want to reiterate, tying into a little bit with Mr. Dewey's, the district's in really, it is in sound finances, but the expenses that we're seeing, and the bus contract is a great example of that, are just really astronomical at times. And it's really difficult to overcome considering the funding constraints that we're having from the state. And again, another year we're likely going to see several $1 million that should go into our budget withheld again. Whether we get a one-time payment or not, who knows? That will be decided. But it is getting difficult. We are cutting this as close as you possibly can. Because we were hoping again for negotiations to work out so we wouldn't have to pay 20% increase or several $1 million. You saw our budget. We do not have several $1 million to be able to put towards a busing contract every single year. So we're working hard, close, and unfortunately found out this week 2 more weeks, and every day at this point matters. And so that wasn't great news, but we did think we can still meet that before we start school, and we'll be able to update us throughout the summer once we get that contract. And if it's with our current vendor, then we'll continue moving. If it's with a different vendor, then we'll update us about some of the changes that we're making and how we're moving forward with it.
Okay. Trustees, any other questions for Dr. Russell or Mr. Stuffer? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stuffer. Dr. Russell, ISAT scores?
Chair Taylor, Trustees, our ISAT scores are coming in. This is a time of year when we take our state assessments. We are seeing some encouraging results, seeing growth right now at every grade level across the district. And that's really impressive to see, considering the things that changes we went through and some of the difficulty we could have. Just huge accolades to our staff for staying focused on our kids' academics and for administrators of running their schools and keeping that focus as well. We have some pockets of incredible success where we're well above state average in some areas. Don't get me wrong, we still have a long ways to go. But we have looked like right now that we have stopped our downslide. We had dropped 3 straight years. That has stopped. We are now going on the way back up. I'm really proud of that and anticipate next year having a strong year academically to continue moving that way. And I'll share more details in June when those kind of finalize a little bit. They can shift a little because the state's still going to do some things, but they often don't shape or shift a lot. So we'll be able to update you, and I'll highlight some of the areas where we're just doing some remarkable things. I think we need to share and highlight some of those. So that's great. And then lastly, it is graduation season. So just another reminder of our student success. All the graduations they're wonderful because it's kids got a chance at life. They made it through the system and they're going to step out and spread their wings. And I'm so proud of so many of them that can do many amazing things. And we just got a great example of that today as well. So
Actually, multiple. I would say arguably both both set, like the gal who put together that 3-minute presentation. I mean, she crushed that in 3 minutes. She
Yeah.
really did. I couldn't even believe it. Yeah.
Hundreds of our students every day in our
Right,
halls
like
and our
just-
schools.
yeah.
These are just a few examples, but they're everywhere. They're amazing to see. It's great.
Yeah, she was remarkable.
She was. She was.
Especially when she
Oh,
said that those who were involved with music have a higher later on in life. Well, I don't know if that's been the case with me. I like to do that research, but it's encouraging.
But my favorite is even the pamphlet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
it was incredible. All right, with that, trustees, anything for possible agenda items? We have our list there. I won't reread it, but if there's anything we can be brought up, it's now. And if not, I will entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
In the presentation that we had, the very first testimony of the night, I think she also emailed us. Is there some opportunity for us to discuss that in the future? No.
Well, isn't it active? It's not a lawsuit, but it's an active investigation.
Sure.
So-
That speaker. It took me a second. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Russell.
Yeah, Trustee Benz, that's a very good question. There was an active, and currently is an active investigation from the Department of Justice that was started from the ACLU. And we did meet with the investigators a week or so ago, as our public comments had mentioned. And so we anticipate to have a final report brought back to the district. And two things will happen. Either one, they'll find some findings that we will need to make some corrective action. And typically Department of Justice will give you some timelines, and they're very specific on the corrective actions. And if that's the case, we'll share that. Or they may not have any findings, but they may come with some recommendations. These are things you should consider. And those were some things that we also can kind of present to the board when that comes forward. And those things may, be things that are Ms. Vander Rey's and her group support. Those things may not, but we'll find out what that is and kind of move forward as we go.
Well, I guess, I don't know. I guess I'm a little confused. I know that there's that separate piece, but it sounds like there were two separate pieces. This was apart from the ACLU action. This was much more of a cultural examination, school culture. Is that right?
I heard what her accusations were. I have no clue if there's basis
I think
to
they're-
what all of the accusations were. So that's why I'm having a hard time. I have no problem if we want to look into it or discuss it. I'm just not sure which portion we would look at until there was some time to do some due diligence on what was stated.
Well, we got to find out.
Yeah, so we've got
We gotta
some
let the
issues.
investigation
Yeah,
play
we've
out.
got to let the investigation play out, but I hear what you're saying, because you're saying that she brought up some new instances.
Well,
Is
it's
what
much
you're
more of a, it's much more of a, so there was the ACLU action regarding dress code, et cetera.
Mhm.
And then it sounds like there's just a general cultural sensitivity component that we may want to examine or just discuss. And
Dr.
I know she spoke specifically to Nampa High, but I
She
don't
did.
know if.
Well, and that's what I was
Okay.
going to ask, is there something active on those newer allegations? I'm not, again, I'm just erring on the side of caution of, I'm not sure what problem is there. And I don't want to allude to a problem. I do not know exactly
Or
what
if-
that is, or
if it's
if, or what, yeah. So I want to be really cautious of that. So Dr. Russell, is there something that could be substantiated or some action
Chair
based on
Taylor,
what she shared?
Chair Taylor, Trustees, that's the first of it I've heard tonight.
Okay.
And we will look into it going forward.
So I think we could,
At least the new accusations.
yeah, so
should
I think we
clarify
could
that.
instruct Dr. Russell to look into that
we-
and then follow up.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what that potential action would be.
Oh, no. I just
Yeah.
was thinking it might be nice to just talk about, well, what does our cultural, well, lack of a better word, cultural sensitivity of awareness training look like within our schools? What does the school culture look like? What is the general temperature around the district and all our schools? Because I know it's going to be different from school to school. And does that warrant a conversation? Does that make sense?
I think it could.
Okay.
I'm just not sure that it's maybe a work session conversation
Okay.
versus a board meeting.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah. I'm
And
just-
maybe what that is a request for a work session
Okay.
around that topic.
Okay.
Do we have a place for that?
I'll
Clerk
follow up
Lamont?
with the board.
Could you do that? Or could we keep a running list of suggested work sessions? Because I think that falls more under that than a board meeting.
Okay.
Am I reading that correctly, where it would go?
Dr. Russell.
Okay.
about options moving forward.
And then getting that finding from the ACLU. Okay.
And Chair Taylor,
Does
Trustees,
that
I wanted
meet
to.
your?
I wasn't sure
Where?
what happens of this, what comes of this.
Yeah.
wanted to clarify, I have met with Miss Verde earlier, a couple of years ago. We went and discussed some things like that. So I was aware of her concerns there. Some of these that tonight I heard were new to me. And so we will look into them.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, trustees, or possible agenda items? Okay, then I will entertain a motion for executive.
I move that we move into executive session per Idaho Code 74206 1B and D. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student. D, to consider the records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Chair Taylor?
Aye.
Trustee Kirkman?
Aye.
Trustee Sue?
Aye.
Trustee Benz?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Okay.
And before we head over to the executive session,
Oh, of course. Yes, yes, yes. And we'll meet you there.